her face instead of a saber or a blunderbuss or a woman named Ethel. The analysis of the news, by God. First was the definition they handed me. Remorse. Everyone's mother's middle name, if your mother was named Eve, and if she was the one that got fired from her very first job. It's obvious then it needs no analysis, since this applies to each and every person here. You said it did, not me. Based on what hormones do to man's sense of the past, based on what neurons do to man's sense of the past, is why elephants and hippos have such small shoulders for their size. I don't guess this has any comment whatsoever to do with a feeling of whether a hippopotamus thought his fly was unzipped or not. Whether animals had any remorse. All forms of the big R. All forms of guilt, shame, hesitation, uncertainty. You have to be able to what? You see, people don't really, that wouldn't have much of an effect, as witnessed by what we just experienced here, because most people would go, what in the hell does that mean? It's looking over your shoulder. But that would be an act, and that is not enough once men became civilized. Plus, they would not want to have that sort of message such as, don't look over your shoulder. See, if you're a hippo, you don't have to tell a hippo not to look over his shoulder. You don't have to tell him to ruminate on the past. Or you don't have to tell him not to. So, to encourage men once they could talk and were no longer simply at the same level as our pachydermian relatives, they had to have stories. And that was, I suggest, since I'm the one doing the analyzation, remorse. And it says that remorse, the definition, you understand, that was a definition. Remorse, colon. Speaking literarily now, for you people. Remorse, colon. And then the definition. Everyone's mother's middle name, if your mother was named Eve, and if she was the one who got fired from her first job. Now see, as long as you have a story like that, then remorse. Of course, you can start out and think, well, the past is not always remorseful. Yeah. You think you're talking to somebody that just got off of a Greyhound bus from a small town. All right, we'll start off, have it your way. We'll start the easy way. The past is non-committal. Because the past is simply the past. And then you have to look at it. I'll go along with this. Then you have to decide, well, wait a minute, the past may not all be filled with remorse and guilt and shame and other bad stuff. Okay. Then we'll all look over our shoulders, individually, collectively. We'll look at the past, and what is it you see? If you got any brains at all that work, you realize immediately, from 7,000 years ago to 7 seconds ago, when humanity looks over its shoulder, what does it see? It does not look back over, even on flatlands like Kansas, you do not look back over and see yellow brick roads. You do not see the good king of Oz. You look back over and you think, good God, the cornfields are on fire. Oh my God, here comes a plague of locusts. Or even accountants and attorneys. Because of what seems to be the genetic sequential progress of life. That is the sense that, if you remember from news item last time, hormones are time, according to that news item, but then it's neurons that think they tell time. And what this has to do with, we didn't get to that item last time, and I'm not really quoting the whole thing, and I know it may have sounded perhaps a bit oblique. Every time ordinary neural activity looks over its shoulder, and you know this by now, all you got to do is check for yourself. It looks like a weather report. And it looks like that the weather reports say, things are not so good. That's because everything right behind you is dying. That's one of the benefits, it's one of the uses that man has of a sense of intelligence, and this so-called that they keep wrestling with, as you know, philosophically and metaphysically, about what is now, what is the present, why is it so important? Why it's so important is because neurons know that right behind me is nothing but one goddamn funeral line. Everything about me and everybody else is dying almost as fast as I can talk. Well, talk faster, all right? And so they don't want to look. So there has to be this sense that there is a present. It's like, well, as long as I'm in the first car in the funeral procession, at least I'm not dead. I mean, that's how I can tell I'm not dead, because I'm here right now. But you look over your shoulder, and what is it? It's nothing but one stretched black Cadillac limousine after another. That's all. You look and you think, Jesus, you know, am I surrounded by dead people? Yes. Well, surrounded in a sense. The point is, if you... That's all you got to do. And it may sound even funny, frightening, upsetting, metaphorically. But all you got to do is look into your own future genetic and future past right inside of you, and what is it? Not to give you the blues. In case anybody ever feels like, well, I don't do enough in life. There's one thing you can always say, once you can see it, is that you are dying as fast as you can. So all you got to do is go, ooh. Behind you, everybody, that's the sense of present, that you're in that lead car that all decent funeral homes, all sane funeral homes, they always furnish people who are alive, the family. That is, the ones paying the bill to bury the stiff, that, you know. But they always give them a car. And you're in it. And that car is a neural sense of the present. Because when you look behind you, it's nothing but bad news. And you can try and debate it and metaphoricalize it forever. You could even get a book and try and find the word. But you look over this way and it's nothing but bad news. And neurons think it's something really deep, metaphysical, philosophical, debatable, but it's a hormonal phenomenon. Which is back to the news item, one of them, that it's based upon, and of course this is sort of a humorous, not literal, news item that says, based on what neurons have done to man's sense of the past, which part of the joke is, might have said that woman that was, you know, watching all this in a tired man recliner. You could say, well, the humor right there is that man's neurons didn't do anything to his sense of the past. His sense of the past are his neurons. In other words, he would have no sense of the past unless he had this. So it's sort of funny already, to say, based on what hormones have done to man's sense of the past. But I guess the kind of ribbons they got on typewriters don't cost that much, and so somebody put in all of that. Based on what hormones do to man's sense of the past is why, hormonally, and in here they say elephants and hippos, but now we're saying is why elephants and hippos seem to have such small shoulders in relationship to their size. Because they don't need shoulders. They got nowhere to look. What are they going to look for? What would you look for if you didn't have any neurons? Nothing. You'd just be skipping along and look like perhaps, Alfred E. Newman on a bad day. In other words, you'd be a silly twit. You would not be the kind of people that we want in here to be an audience and an eyewitness to serious news programs and reports and analysis like this. No, sir. All right. There were other animal items in here. I don't know whether we got them all. Before men were cows, they were pigs, but they had to change since pigs are so hard to insult. I guess these were sort of connected. That one was, only humans are cute and sweet enough to believe that other animals like them. The real item, I wanted to do you two versions because what was really written, those of you that can remember that when it was really originally read, it goes this way. Only humans are cute and sweet enough to believe that other animals can like them. That my dog loves me. That's right, sir. I'm sure he does. Well, he likes me. That's right. But like, no matter what an ordinary person thinks, I will, in my unpaid capacity to analyze and use, tell you what it really means. Anytime that somebody says, well, and this is the only other sense to use it, trans or extra mortally, is animals. And it's almost entirely, of course, to domesticated animals, but you could imagine it otherwise. But at any rate, someone with a nice, close, living relationship with a dog, with a domesticated animal. It is quite possible and very easy to say, well, there's no doubt my dog likes me. And there are many stories that of a master dying, and the story goes that the dog or a cat, but especially the dog, almost pines to death. This, saddens and just withers away, which shows that an animal can like you. Another creature can like you. I said love, same thing, but you understand, like. But what they do not conceive of, what is not normally analyzed in this way, to like requires one thing, absolutely, and that is to be able to think. And if a dog could think, it could talk. And it could use a credit card, and it could look over its shoulder. Well, there's something here. I'm going to analyze it to the point that I'm going to make something there. It's my job. Why is it? All right, well, first let me point out, on the basis that we're discussing this, which is the only factual basis known to man, but that's just between you and I. A dog cannot like you. You may figure that your best friend is a dog, your dog. But to think that your dog likes you, you got to understand, he would have to be able, or she, to think. And that is not one of the capacities of the nervous system of any creature on this planet that you can see except man. A dog cannot like anybody. No creature can like anybody unless it can think. So all you got is man. But why is it that people want to believe that another animal, another creature, can like them? Now, if your dog likes you, I assume you know by now, or at least I'm trying to rub your nose in it so that you won't do it on the carpet again. If your dog seems to like you, your dog takes you as to be the leader of the pack. It doesn't matter whether he's ever heard of Phil Spector or not. You and the dog are dancing, but you're dancing at the hormonal level, and you are leading. But your dog cannot like you. No creature can like you. It becomes real problematic whether another human can like you. But that indeed is another bus ticket entirely, and we won't go into that. But I was going to present to you that great rhetorical question. Now we have it sort of up to the point of a nice juicy pimple, to ask yourself, why is it that people want to believe that other creatures can like them? And for those of you who are not enamored of animals or don't have pets, and if you think in some way this doesn't apply to you or that you can't figure it out, then life is arranged in such a way, if you might like to notice this, those who are not great pet lovers are normally religious. And so take what I just said about pets and think about religion and God and all that. Whoa! Oh. Aren't you glad we don't have time to go into that? Then you got to figure, well, who's dancing with who? But see, if you're a common, ordinary sort, you'd think, wait a minute, you're saying that we're in relationship to God as my dog is to me. No. That's really wishful thinking. Well, it's got to be. That's the only possibility. It was still in line with some of the animals news items, and this was our story for the day. A man with a turtle walked into the Fable Commission and said, "So what gives? And now a news item specifically for all of the neurons and people with actual live brains who might be in our viewing audience. Here's the item. Remember, hormones are your friend. But mainly remember this. Hormones are mainly their friend. Why do you look over your shoulder? Have you ever noticed we've had several items about people going crazy and being nuts? By the way, somebody here at the station pointed out that, I'm just taking their word for it, they just told me in the hall before the show that they get more viewer response to any news item having to do with people being nuts and crazy than any other kind. And I was in a hurry, but the way they put it was like not just more response, but they kind of, shuddered like, well. Why is it that people, what I was going to ask you, many people are concerned about going nuts, being crazy, driving themselves crazy, wondering whether they are crazy, wondering whether does other people think I'm crazy, and stuff like that. You do understand from the kind of verbal, analytic viewpoint that we're using, ad hocly speaking, of man being able to live an intellectual life, at least describable in words, and then kind of a more physical life. No new idea there. Why is it that man, the more civilized he is, the more educated, the more ordinary he is, why is it that a man then becomes, apparently, more concerned about this, from the limbic system, from the brainstem up, that is, his neural life, his intellectual life, that is, he has more fear about being considered dumb, crazy, intellectually ill-kempt, ill-read, than he does about down here. Yes, I may be dying of cancer, but by God, I've got my master's degree. Yes, I may be a fat pig, but I've got an IQ into the high three figures. Hormones, back to the news items. Remember, hormones are your friend. All right, before we go any further, just to complicate the matter, watch this. Do you recall it was about, I'm guessing, 90 seconds ago, I was pointing out that the more civilized a man is, and then I threw in the words such as first, initially, in the beginning, it seems as though he then becomes more concerned, as you might go along with at first blush, that he is more concerned with activities up here. But then what happens after it goes past a certain point? It gets interesting as always if you find life interesting. Go out to a college, go out to a high school, go out where there's a running track, and who will you find out there running? Apparently concerned and taking their own blood pressure and all this stuff, and looking in their own eye. Do you find bricklayers? Do you find fat, beer-drinking, drywall people? Guys named Buford? No, you find guys, named Biff and Sally or Susie. You find nice people with nice educations, with nice cars, nice hairdos, nice clothes. You do not find some sloppy-looking guy in ripped-up shorts and bad haircut. You find people who are more driven up here, apparently, and they're the ones out there doing this. I asked you, did you want me to complicate it more? And you all went, yes. What the hell? You asked for it. Now back to, see, but it spirals. It's only children that think, Jesus, a merry-go-round drive you nuts. That's child's play. That's why children, that is, ordinary adults, go, life could drive me nuts. I hate to pull the old joke, but, in most people's case, it's not a drive, it's a short putt. So, when they're good, they're hard to improve on. Even if you have to plagiarize, at least it's not copyrighted. So we've been through that. I'll leave it as complicated as that. It would seem that at first not just individuals, not just Biff out there running, not just this overweight, or not just this accountant or a man with a PhD in physics. It's not just him out there running. It's not that that happens in some way. It's some kind of ironic justice. It has to do, and it's not with the individual, with the continuing progression, which is very complex and not sequential, not unified, and there's not one time zone going on, that people initially seem to be, the more educated they are, the more interest they have in the mind. It just seems, what shall we call it? How about self-evident, you idiot? All right, self-evident. Thank you. But then what happens? They get past that, and suddenly they seem to have more interest in the non-intellectual side than more physical people do. More physically driven people is what I mean. You know now about Bruno and Bubba and some guy drinking beer and some guy that works as a plumber, an electrician, just ordinary physical people. They have, their whole life is physical. Eating, screwing, sleeping, laying inside of, propped up there in front of the TV in their tired man recliner. I guess if I repeat that enough, everybody will finally go, I'll admit it's cheap to get a laugh off of a commercial named product, but are we out? Bye. All right, at any rate, the complexity, and the news item was pointing out that hormones are your friend. Hormones is everybody's friend. Another way, if you want real quick, is life is everybody's friend. What would be more friendly to a hippo, to a beaver, to a dog than hormones? From here down, discount your brain. Some of you people's case, it's not going to get into any kind of great, having to pull out a calculator to figure out the discount rate. Hormones are your friend. But back to the Bubbas and all those in the world, you would first think where we stopped the tape, I guess, the public tape, as you would think, correctly so, that the more physical people in the world, hormones are really their friend. What do they live for? The body. Nothing wrong with it, because there was even a news item tonight that we didn't pull out that said the truly civilized, only the truly civilized believe that happiness can be solely an intellectual affair. That's the way if you ever need a real test about, not to yourself, because I think more of all of you, I'm sure you're sane enough that I don't have to apply this to you, but if anybody else you think, is how truly civilized is the person? You just find out whether they believe, which is not that uncommon, that happiness could be possibly just an outgrowth, strictly, of an intellectual effort. I mean, I'll take your breath away. You're dealing then with somebody who is civilized, I mean with a capital C, inside quotation marks. That's civilized. Because hormones are your friend. In other words, it's a laugh. It just shows, but somebody that's civilized into tomorrow, into the imagination where a man's going to believe. If I got us too lost again, that's like the old, I'm sure it's been some kind of science fiction dream, but or movie, but like a real civilized man, or they may call it a real intelligent man, or a real mystical man would be like if you could extract somebody's brain, especially some great person, Buddha or Einstein or Babe Ruth. And even after their poor old body died, you could save that great brain and just the brain there in this kind of, whatever kind of B-grade movie, in this, some kind of vat of pickled juice and wires running in it, and it kind of, glow. And you think, God, it doesn't stink, it doesn't make rude noises, it doesn't, it won't try to, put the make on your wife. It's just this great brain without all the other, yucky stuff having to do with the body. That's dream on, dream on. But that is exactly what that news item was talking about that I just did that with. Was that is a truly civilized man is someone who believes that happiness could be strictly an intellectual affair. Not that it's possible yet, but that it could be. And of course, the more ordinarily intellectual you are, street level, the more you think it can be, that it should be, that it will be. Back to the news item where we were. You could think, not improperly so, if you're an ordinary person riding by on a horse real fast, that good physical person hanging around a bar, bricklayer, just the physical people in the world, overweight, out of shape, smoking, drinking, overeating, eating all the stuff full of cholesterol and other stuff that tastes good and fat. All right, there's the physical people. And you think, well, if there's anybody in the world that should be in gyms, out on the track running, being concerned about their health, would be them. I mean, just think about it just for 1 second, you go, well, sure. And then think about 2 seconds, and you realize, well, they're not. And then think about it for 1 second again, you think, well, that's weird. And then think about it 2 seconds again, you think, no, it ain't. No, that's really unweird. And then, follow me real quick, we jump from there over to the local university, across town from this cheap bar. And we got all these people, thin, like in good shape, but they do not talk about about physical stuff. They're not talking about fucking. They're not talking about, a new beer that's out. They're not talking about a place where beer's on sale. They're not talking about where they're having a wet T-shirt, and Hooters contest. It's civilized, sophisticated men and women, right? But then what do? They're the ones out in a gym. They're the ones that are carrying around their own little blood pressure machines and taking their own temperature. They're the ones exercising, faithfully running in the cold. And at first, for 1 second, you could go, that's weird. And then you think 2 seconds, and you think, no, it ain't. Right? Right. Back to the news item. Remember, hormones are your friend. That news item cuts all the examples I just made. It cuts the guys standing in the bar that are eating all the cheesy pizzas or whatever's supposed to be bad for you now. I heard that somebody's come out with a public service announcement that somebody's just going to wrap it up and say, food. Just say no. It's going to be the way out. At any rate, you understand that now the news item, if you follow me, it covers all these overweight, fat guys that are doing everything that's supposed to be bad for you. They're staying there drinking beer, and they're smoking, and they're overeating, and they're eating pig feet sandwiches. I'm sorry. They're at the bar, doing all that stuff. Then across town we have all of these people, educated, sophisticated. They keep up. Some of them even subscribe to the New England Journal of Medicine. They keep up with the health items. They read the columns in the paper. They're running. They'll run no matter, day and night in cold weather. They do everything. There's no difference in this news item. Both consider that extremes. That is Eastern Standard Time and their specific standard time. Back to the news item. Hormones are your friend. But hormones are mainly their own fucking friend. I'm trying my best to help life out, said a man. And there was also a news item tonight that said perhaps, or it was a contender, I think it said, for the title of the world's man's most moot act. No, I'm mixing up news items, but what the hell, I wrote them. The pretentiousness of man. How about that? A contender for that. That is, a man kind of rolls over in bed to laugh and punches and says, honey, I didn't hurt you, did I? I assume I'd hate to just rub your... Everybody got the gist. It's like a man rolling over to a woman. Didn't scare you with that thing, did I? All right. Now. All right. Now what I want you to see, now it's back to men believe. Notice. It's no attack on anything in particular in life. It's just the way things are. It's men being concerned. Nowadays, it's not just, I could use religion, morality, but nowadays there's a great example, and it's moved it into sort of a new era, and to stretch even your observation of it, environmentalism. My God, what are we doing to the planet? To the rainforest in Brazil. What damage, what perhaps even irreversible damage we have done to some of the areas, the more arid areas of the African plains. Man punches life. Honey, I didn't hurt you, did I? Back to the news item, in case you think you lost your place. Hormones are your friend, but hormones are mainly their friend. Well, shoot. That's what. That was a, believe it or not, a climax of what I was talking about. I was just trying to kind of look off and let you think. Intellectually, did that actually come? Only you know. So that's only ordinary people that are doing it, doing the little wild thing. And one of them thinks, especially women think, did he actually come? Intellectually, yourself, you got to be thinking, but it's only ordinary people that wait around and go, well, what was the punchline? You wait for a priest, a rabbi, an institution, a philosopher to go, well, that's exactly what I told you. You go, oh, okay. Then you figure, well, at least he came. I can go home now. I can get over with it. Which is the same thing as man punching life and saying, don't guess you'd want me to do it again, would you? Bet you couldn't stand it getting sore, right? If you got to look to somebody else and figure, did they actually do it? I mean, it's what I just heard. Did it make sense? Was that an important comment? And the man dressed up funny says, that was an important comment. I have just wrapped up my evening's lecture. Of course, especially if they're doing it good, they got a holy book. They got something else, extrinsic. I have just given you an extremely important, yes, I said extremely important message from afar, from the gods, from another planet. Honey, did I hurt you? Ordinary men can believe that. Ordinary men have to believe that. But remember this. Life is your friend, but mainly life is its own friend. You just happen to be in bed.